Denizens of the interwebs. This is Double V, and this is a Droppin' a log. We're going to talk about Neverwinter for a minute here. We're going to talk about Neverwinter because some interesting and unfortunate things have been happening in regards to Neverwinter. The reason why this is of note is because I am not going to be playing it anymore. Let's just jump right into it. And the thing about that is, I had promised to make my spreadsheets and things that I normally do when I get serious into a game. And due to the events that I will talk about, I will not be doing that, and I will not be supporting this game anymore. Now, every issue that I will present here that's causing me to want to stop playing this game is in regards to the management of the game. It's really not about the game itself. I think it's a great game. It had its chance to be a legendary game, but I feel like I don't trust the developers / publishers, whoever is calling the shots, in regards to the following things. The first thing, and absolutely the most important issue in regards to this, is with the mass banning. Now, there was a mass ban for a very legitimate exploit that was breaking the game, and I don't blame them for that. No, there have been other mass bans in regards to things that I believe are complete bullshit. Now, before you say, oh, you're just butthurt because you got banned. Well, I didn't actually get banned, but the reports I was seeing of people getting banned and what they got banned for, I thought was completely asinine and led me immediately not to trust this developer. Let's talk about bullshit mass banning Exhibit A. Creating foundry missions that provided the player with an extreme advantage against the monsters within. This led people to be able to level up rather quickly. However, other than for those particular players' personal enjoyment, it did not break the game in any way, and there was no reason for the creators of these things to get banned. They simply should have been taken down. The loophole that the beta testers graciously found for the developers should have been simply fixed, and that would be that. No. They banned everybody who made those types of levels. I don't feel like during a beta test, when a beta tester does what they're supposed to do, that you should ban them for it instead of just fixing it. Now, there are extreme outlandish cases of this, which I think are borderline, and I can almost understand the bans on some of them. Some of the levels were insanely broken. For example, you'd walk into one, if you were a control wizard, you'd be able to knock 50 mobs off of a cliff, gain all the experience for them, bing bang boom. Now, here's what's interesting about this. After they banned everybody, they didn't actually fix it. What they did was nerf the experience for it rather than fixing the mechanics that made these things possible. For the extreme ones where it was very, very obvious that you were just exploiting the fuck out of the game, okay, I'll let you get by with some of those bans, but some of the people were getting banned for making levels where you walked through and killed monsters. Just because it was very, very efficient. Now, this is not the one that I showed on video. That one was pretty cheesy. But as cheesy as it was, like I said, in a beta test, it's not ban-worthy. But what's really not ban-worthy is one where you actually have to earn it. And you still aren't allowed to do it just because it's really good. But you walk through, you kill all the monsters yourself. Nope. Creators of those are banned. And that, I'm putting the asinine bullshit stamp right on there, yeah. Enough talk about the foundry. Exhibit B in bullshit banning. The so-called Pirate King Boss exploit. Let me explain what this is. The first thing that can be said about it is that it's not an exploit. What it is a very rudimentary oversight from the developers things that exist all the time in games, and they will creep up again in this game, and people will probably be continually getting banned for them. But here's how it worked. Basically, you'd go in, you kill the Pirate King boss. If you happened to die, if your party wiped after you just killed the boss, if you wiped to his little ad guys, you would respawn at the nearest spawn point, and the Pirate King would also respawn. Now, bear in mind that the loot was still there for you to grab. So you get your loot, and you get to kill another boss without having to go through the instance again. Now, let me compare this to a real exploit. Let's say you were able to walk through a wall and magically teleport to the last boss, and then kill him and get your stuff right when you entered the instance. That's obviously completely unintended, not in the game mechanics, etc. Having a boss respawn when you die, because the developers were too stupid to see it, and not only that, but this happening in beta testing, as they are calling it, is not an exploit, and it's not bannable, period. I don't care how bad it breaks the game. That's not an exploit. Walking through wall to skip dungeon equals exploit. Killing boss, dying to boss's minions, respawning at the default legitimate spawn point, killing boss again. I'm sorry, that is not an exploit. That is a very simple developer oversight that they should not have punished the players for using after they discovered it, period. These players should be rewarded for using it. And they were. They were rewarded with loot. They found a funny thing in the game, which may happen on all the bosses as far as I know. I don't know, I haven't tried. But I don't find this to be an exploit, and I don't find it to be an issue that's bannable. I mean, what if people discover how to use run speed items and run at max speed and just run through the dungeon? Is that going to be considered an exploit too? Where do you actually draw the line here? Everyone's always going to be looking on how they can gain an advantage. When advantages present themselves, the players will use them. That is what makes games fun. To gain an advantage over the other players. That's what multiplayer gaming is typically about. That is why, for example, the Foundry Experience dungeons were so popular. Yeah, we got easy experience farms. Now listen, I think they should have left them in the game. I think things that are broken and people find fun should be left in the game. Don't nerf the fun. If somebody wants to level up with the quests that were designed, that's more fun to them. For some people, it's more fun to grind on a thing that levels you up faster. I mean, there's nothing about fair or unfair here either. Basically, if you care whether or not things are fair, you're probably trying to find that unfair advantage. Any advantage is unfair, of course. So, logically, if you care about the competition, then you would care about yourself gaining an advantage, which means then it would be unfair, right? So why would you complain that you were losing the competition? Well, just because people like to complain when things don't go their way. And if it wasn't a competition, you'd say, oh, look at these idiots missing the entire game by leveling up fast. And some people do have that attitude, and you can tell immediately those are people who don't care about competition. Alright, moving on to the third and absolutely most asinine mass ban. Knocking enemies off of cliffs. Now, if you play a class that has knockback, you may have noticed that you can knock enemies off of cliffs actively. If you have played a class that doesn't have knockback, you may have noticed that you can trick enemies into falling off cliffs. These things, my friends, apparently are bannable in certain cases. The case being that you are knocking monsters off cliffs in extremely difficult content because it provides an insta-kill. Well, to me, knocking monsters off cliffs is in the game, it's a game mechanic, and it shouldn't matter what monster you knock off a cliff, that's a strategy. If you put a cliff next to a difficult pack of monsters, you better hope that the smart players use that cliff to their advantage. You don't ban them for playing the game well. I mean, we saw similar issues in Guild Wars 2, where the developers were blaming the players for their oversights and banning them for it, rather than just, fixing it. Now, it's worth mentioning that in many cases, fixing the thing that people were using to gain their advantage is oftentimes just as good as banning them. A lot of people will quit when they can no longer play the game in what they were considering a fun way. They find this neat thing. They're getting the advantage that they crave from multiplayer gaming, and then it's taken away. A lot of people quit because of that. I personally lost a lot of interest when they nerfed the Foundry. I was leveling up my characters at a decent rate, and before I could get everybody leveled up, then, it was gone. It wasn't there anymore, and my plan was to use that, and I just stopped leveling up my characters. I can't be the only one who felt this way when it was taken away. I mean, it was literally one of the most popular ways to party with people. But anyway, the moral of this whole thing is, game developers, please, don't ban anybody unless they are real fucking deviants. To get banned from a game for using a very simple advantage a small number of times is ridiculous. Now, bear in mind, this is different from something like, there was one that wasn't really an exploit, but it was just a douchebag thing to do, like people were doing AFK PvP. Now, that's not an exploit either, but come on, that breaks the game. Fuck that. Knocking monsters off cliffs doesn't break the game. Getting a lot of items into the auction house because you kept killing the pirate boss doesn't break the game. Leveling up quickly does break the game, but it's only breaking it for you. It doesn't break it for anybody else. The bottom line is, people who ruin the experience for everybody else should be banned. And I would not have a problem with that ever. People who are ruining the game only for themselves should not be banned. But if you don't want that feature to be in your game, I still understand. Simply fix it. Don't ban everybody for using it when it didn't hurt anybody else. Now, in this game, we've had other problems as well, as I mentioned at the beginning. There have been things that caused a real crisis, and I am glad that they banned people for some of these things that were causing real crises. However, it is not enough for me to overlook the fanatic handing bans out like candy, overzealous moderation in the game. Any game that has that is a huge red flag for me. It is one of the things, for example, that I saw that I really didn't like about Guild Wars 2. I played Guild Wars 2 for a long time anyway because it was that amazing to me. But, man, this stuff reminds me of ArenaNet's bullshit. And it is the reason that I don't want to go back and play Guild Wars 2. And it is the reason that I don't want to go back and play Neverwinter. I want to play a game that's run by people who know how to let people have fun and know when to kick people out. You don't kick people out unless they're ruining the fun for everybody else, as I said. So Neverwinter, thanks for the fun, and fuck you very much. This has now been a dropped log. Double V out.